for our home viewing audience.
Here we go. I think that's great. I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit about a concept in environmental psychology called place attachment. Place attachment happens to be one of the things that I wrote my thesis on when I was getting my master's degree. And it's basically an emotional bond that people have to a certain place. So frequently people will have place attachment to their childhood home or a specific place where something important has happened in their life. You can also have place attachment to just general things like maybe growing up, like for me, for instance, I would go on the swings a lot. So I have a place attachment to swings because it brings happy childhood memories. My husband's a golfer, and so he has place attachment to really nicely groomed, well-cut grass. And it's interesting when you think about these things. You think about what makes up these bonds to places. You may have an actual attachment to a national park or a specific area that is just vast and glorious and gorgeous. But in regards to how it affects us in this city, we all have place attachment in different ways and for different locations and for different reasons. And so I just think it's an interesting concept to think about why people have attachment to place, why they have attachment to a place being a certain way. And we see that frequently in comments that we get from residents because change happens in our city and we don't want to try to resist change. We want to try to manage change in a way that is appropriate and responsible. But also we need to respect the attachment that people have to places and the emotional attachment that comes along with that. And I think it's just something to keep in mind as we go throughout what we do every day. And I'll say a quick prayer. Heavenly Father, we're grateful that we could meet together as Planning Commission today. We pray for Thy Spirit to help us to have clear minds and to be able to be guided by logic and reason and be able to follow the laws of the land and do so with kindness and equity. We are grateful for this opportunity to volunteer our time and help our city. And we pray for the residents in our city. We pray for those who serve our city and keep us safe. And we're grateful for all of these blessings and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. Starting with the first item on our agenda, we're being asked to consider the proposed conceptual subdivision plat, including 4 lots, which is proposed to be 14 total single-family homes at approximately 196 East Chase Lane. And we'll turn the time over to staff.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As indicated, this is a proposed subdivision. We are on the second step, which is the preliminary subdivision plan. As you're aware, the Planning Commission saw the initial project during their conceptual subdivision review, and there was a few directives that you forwarded to the applicant to address. So in the staff report, I've highlighted those things that they have completed. There are a couple of tie-ups from that conceptual dealing with the utility provider sheets. I believe I attached to you the comments from the secondary water provider, and they were working with Dominion Energy for the natural gas service. Other than that, they substantially addressed the issues of conceptual and are requesting for you to consider the preliminary. I've gone back and highlighted the residential low standards in the staff report for you. As you'll recall, that's 14 lots. There'll be a single family lots that are being proposed, and there were some adjustment to some lot lines made to bring it more in conformance with the idea of perpendicular lot lines. There are some existing homes, and so it does affect a little bit of the configuration of the lot shapes, but staff didn't feel during the preliminary review after they changed some things that there were any further notable concerns. We did bring up the issue with the end of the cul-de-sac. As you develop a cul-de-sac and create the shape of a cul-de-sac, you have usually a pie-shaped lot, as we nickname it, for the subdivision. Our standards for the RL zone is when those lot lines intersect a public street, you need a minimum of 40 feet. And then when the lot lines diverge from each other from the street, at setback, which would be at 25 feet, they need to be at 60 feet for the minimums. It looked like from our review of the plat that this is likely the case, but we just raised the issue that we reassure the drawings to meet that expectation. Other elements that are associated that were talked by the Development Review Committee, the next step, if you were to allow it to move forward, would be final subdivision plat. This is where we address the construction of the subdivision along with the plat. So we're receiving the engineering plans for the utilities. And just a note that have been with the Development Review Committee, drainage was not a large issue, but it's a design issue for the project. You have a sloping hill. There was some discussions on capturing that water. Normally when you build a place, you can run the water out into the street, but on a downhill side, you're going to have some matters of drainage that can occur. And there was some discussion with the city engineer about capturing the downhill drainage, whether there needed to be detention for each lot. To my understanding, the city engineer didn't want to look at creating a common detention area for the project, because then you have a facility that either becomes public or a facility that becomes private and needs to be maintained. But I think that's just something that the engineer has noted, that the drainage for this subdivision, the details of that need to be worked out on the construction drawings. From there, staff, you can see our recommendation. We think it's at a point that it can move on to the final subdivision process, where we begin to look at the construction drawings and the final plat layout that meets our recording approvals. So at this point, we see no matters that couldn't be handled during that process, and so we're recommending approval at this time.
Thank you very much, Corey. Any questions for staff? If not, we'll invite the applicant to step forward and speak to this matter. If you'll just introduce yourselves to us.
I am Kyle Honeycutt. I am working for Mr. Barris here, who is the owner of the middle property up there. If I could just go through some of the things, I was hoping to have the gas will serve document for you guys today, but they may have sent it to me, but my power got blown out about 5 hours ago at my house, so I don't know. If I saw it on my phone, I didn't see it on my phone, so I'm assuming they haven't sent it yet. As far as the 40-foot in the front and then the 60-foot at the setback line, I know my engineer designed it to that specification, but he should have dimensionalized it so you guys could see that. So going forward, we'll put those dimensions on there so that you guys know that that's happening. As far as drainage goes, I think we've got enough slope from the east side of the property down to the west side of the property that we can really prevent any water coming from the east, capture it in some minor drainage swells in the front and backyards, and then we can also run on the west side, run those lots with a slope heading towards the front so that we don't go into the neighbors' yards that way. Thankfully, it's not a flat project. It's not an extremely steep project either, but it has just enough. It's just right in my mind that we'll be able to do everything we need to do on that drainage side. So our engineer's pretty experienced at that kind of thing, so we're confident we can get those drawings to the city engineer's satisfaction. Other than that, we appreciate staff's working with us, and we're really grateful to be able to move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Honeycutt. Any questions for the applicant? Looks like we're a pretty cold panel tonight. Thank you very much. This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll go ahead and take this opportunity to open the public hearing and invite any member of the public who wishes to speak to this matter to step forward. Seeing no one rushing forward, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Any further discussion or debate? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Yeah, real quickly though, I think, just so that we don't give the wrong impression about not making much comments, we talked about this one quite a bit before. This was a good, healthy discussion we had the first time we saw this one, so it's not like we're just, not doing anything, so.
Well taken. That was my poor attempt at humor.
Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to approve the preliminary subdivision plan for the Dual Creek Place subdivision. Am I on the right one? I am. It is Bears Cove.
Did I write Dual?
It says Dual Creek, that's why I was wondering if we're on the right one. Let's start over. I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to approve the preliminary subdivision plan for the Bears Cove subdivision with the directives, conditions 1 through 5 in the staff report and suggested reasons for action A through C.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate?
You don't need to put like 196 East Chase Lane. You have to put that location on that. Bears Cove located at 196. We generally do that, but it doesn't matter,
Okay,
does it?
Bears Cove located at 196
There you go.
East Chase Lane,
Perfect.
Centerville, Utah.
I would just make a comment that Commissioner Daly mentioned this, we've talked about this quite a bit, and I appreciate that some of the concerns that I had initially with frontage and with some of the lot sizes being quite a bit smaller compared to others have been addressed, and so that it looks like you could feasibly get some homes on some of these smaller lots that we weren't quite sure if you were going to be able to get. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that they've taken those into consideration. So,
Thank you. Any further comment? It's been moved and seconded, so we'll start with you, Commissioner Daly.
Aye.
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 Great, thanks. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, I shouldn't confess it, I actually typed Dual Creek in that report. Oh. So that was my fault. Because we've been working with the county on Dual Creek. I have no idea why I actually typed that.
Great, we'll let it pass tonight. Yeah. We'll grant you a pass on that one. All right, thank you very much. Moving right along to the second item on our agenda, we are being asked to consider the proposed zoning map amendment for the property at 484 and 522 West Porter Lane, looking at changing it from residential low to residential medium. So I'll turn the time back over to staff.
All right, thank you, Chair. This property, like you said, is on Porter Lane in between the church and the Porter Walton townhomes. And the addresses are 484 and 522. As you can see from this photo clip from the zoning map, it is about an acre in size and has 2 single-family homes currently existing on the property, and it is also split zoned with some being RL and some being residential medium. So I am unaware of how this split zoning happened in the past. I didn't know that was possible. I know we tried to not do that. And I don't know how they were, I know that they used to be 2 lots, and I would kind of assume that that lot split was previously between the 2 homes, but it has since been combined. So it is now just a 1 acre parcel. So those 2 single-family homes that are currently on it are now rendered non-conforming because we only allow 1 home per lot. And then there's the issue of the 2 zones on 1 piece. So, the applicant, Mr. Hafoka, would like to complete the rest of the zoning on this parcel into completely residential medium. So according to the general plan, the residential medium is allowed to be on Porter Lane beyond approximately 500 West. And And I mentioned those two addresses earlier because there is no 500 West Road on Porter Lane in this spot. Obviously, you can infer where it would be between 400 West and 600 West. But due to the addressing, you might say that it would lie between those two homes, but if you look at the streets, it would, not be there. So, there's just some issues on where people think 500 West would lie, but the general plan does say approximately. And we do prefer, as the general plan states, zoning boundaries to follow lot lines. So we do want this to be an entire zone, whether or not it's RL or RM. So using that interpretation, I would say that 500 West is more in the middle of this block, and that entire parcel would be beyond 500 West. But either way, it is just an approximation since there is no street there. In going through the considerations for zoning map amendments, we have to make sure that it aligns with the general plan, as I just stated, and the surrounding area of the property. So as you can see from the zoning map, it is right next to Porter Walton Townhomes. Across the street is Shayla Park, and there is still some agricultural low zoning to the south of it. And this AL zoning is the church. This Dave Bell property was also recently rezoned to residential medium. So there is plenty of residential medium in the area, and I do just want to mention that the developments of Porter Walton and Shayla Park were both approved when the RM zone was still at 8 units an acre, and it has since been reduced to 6 units an acre. So this would have a lower density than the surrounding RM that's already there. So that might be a good thing for the people across the street if they didn't want more density. So it does, based on the zoning map, is harmonious with the overall zones in the area. And if not, even less dense than the surrounding residential medium zones that are there. It does state in the general plan that if it does switch to RM, it should be considered for a PUD in the future, so that's not something to be considered until the site plan, though. And due to the church right to the east of the property, I think considering a PUD and just paying special attention to any buffering, like landscaping and stuff in the future, would be in the interest of the property, so we have some nice buffering for the church and those surrounding lower intensity zones. But overall, I think the RM zone does fit in this area, and I think it would also, as a consequence of rezoning, make those two homes into conformity and also solve the issue of having the split zoning on the property.
Thanks, Cassie.
Yeah.
Any questions for staff?
Was the split zoning, did that occur when Hafoka was developed
I would assume so.
Didn't?
for the townhomes?
No, those are separate pieces of property originally.
But then wasn't that originally RL and then it went to RM, the Hafoka development?
Right.
So then would there have been just a little teeny sliver in between RL, and a little sliver of RM?
I think we did do a down zone, so that must have been when it was, I'd have to check. But they're separate properties, I know that.
Huh.
Any other questions for staff? Right. We'll go ahead and invite the applicant to step forward and speak to this matter, if you would like to do so. If you'll just introduce yourself to us for the record.
Well, I wish my wife come and speak, but
She can come too, you can both come. You can both stand up there and speak.
it's okay. I don't speak that good English, but I'll try. I just want to thank you for considering the property to change because
What is your name,
I
sir?
want to make the play. My name is Hafoka. Atieri. I go by Andy. Kyle know my name.
Thank you.
And I want to make the place look nice. There's two old homes there, over 200 years. So it's an eyesore over there right now. But I'll make the place look nice and fit with the city and the community. And that's why I sell my property to those,
Brighton.
yeah, because I want them to have opportunity to have like us. So it's good to see more people come into our community, and I want to make my place look nice, with the church and the town home, because I'll live here for the rest of my life here in Centerville, except if my wife take me back to the island. but that's where I'm reside here, and I want to make the place look nice. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you very much, sir.
If we have a luau, I'll furnish the pig and everything, and the show and everything.
Excellent. This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll take the opportunity to open the public hearing and invite any member of the public who wishes to speak to this matter to step forward. And sir, if you'll just introduce yourself to us before you speak to us.
I'm Robert Burns, the president of the Centerville Dual Creek Irrigation Company, and I'm familiar with the property because I've dealt with the division of water shares in the changes of the property there. So I would just provide some information if you would like. The higher density zoning was part of the zoning change previously, and then that portion of property was separated out from the development.
Okay.
At one time it was 3 pieces, so that's why it's kind of odd shaped.
Okay.
And we weren't aware it had been combined into one, so we still have it as 2 accounts, but moving forward, I'm sure we'll see some requests for utility provider review, and we'll change that to 1 account, and we'll reconfigure the services there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing some shaking heads out there. Nope. All right, we'll go ahead, and seeing no one else step forward, we'll close the public hearing. Any further questions for staff or discussion or debate?
Yeah, I was just going to make a quick comment on the discussion about 500 West. The general plan says everything west of 500 West. Well, there is no 500 West like anywhere in there.
I think there is.
Way up north.
Yeah,
but
so it exists.
but not in this neighborhood
Yeah.
anywhere. But the general plan that you're talking about is for this neighborhood, right?
Right, I was just trying to find
Yeah.
it in general.
For this neighborhood, there's no 500 West. And so in my mind, and this is, I throw this out here just kind of for conversation and explain the thought process there. 500 West was probably put out as a number to kind of mean behind the lots that are fronting 400 West, And so in this case, that would meet that. Obviously, the church would be on 400 West, so 500 West would be anything behind that. So.
Yeah, good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah, if I was drawing 500 West in my mind, it looks like it might just sneak on the east edge of that property, but I don't know. Either way, it's general, right, Cassie? It's approximately 500 West. So.
Any further discussion?
Well, I know that, the elephant in the room is that the previous development of Hofoka has been great for our city, but also has come with some turmoil. There were some difficulties among the residents and how they viewed the property. I know I came in right after, on the Planning Commission, right after that was approved, and I know there were still a lot of, issues trying to figure out what the residents were hoping for and what the developers were hoping for and all these different things. But that's to say that I think, if we were to approve this, putting this up to the residential medium with the changes that have occurred in the density for the residential medium, I don't see people coming out with pitchforks or concerns or anything.
Bazookas.
Because some of that has been alleviated through changing the density levels on residential medium. So to me, that speaks to a compromise that was reached between the city and the residents to come to something that really allows multiple people to be multiple parties to be happy. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that the city has thought through that, and that now we don't have any major concerns from residents.
I would be in favor of granting the requested rezone, even if it were 8 units per acre, given
Right.
the surrounding areas. But I am particularly persuaded by the fact that it is now a lower density, and there's not a single resident that came out in opposition to the request.
And especially given the history of its neighbor.
So to be clear though, and Corey, clarify this one, if it's a PUD, isn't there still a chance for a bonus?
Yes.
20% bonus on 6 units would be 7 units?
Yeah, well, on multifamily development, it would have to be a minimum of 5 acres to achieve the bonus
Oh,
allowance.
so there's no eligibility for a
no,
bonus
there you
here.
go.
Got it, okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Had to roll it back in my mind.
You're like,
Any further discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Chair, I hereby make a motion to recommend approval to the city council the following zoning map amendment, parcel number 03-001-0209 at 522 and 44 Porter Lane, approximately where 500 West would be, from residential low to residential medium zone, with the proposed reasons for the action A through C in the staff report.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? If not, we'll start with you, Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
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 Aye?
Thank you. The motion passes. So this is not the end of the journey for you. Now it will go to the city council, but our recommendation is that the city council does make that change. So
Looking forward to that luau.
we are looking forward to that luau. Thank you very much.
Joking. Not something that we're asking for.
I thought that was very implicit, but thank you, Lisa.
It's probably smart of me.
That is smart, Elisa.
Didn't even think of it that way. All right, item number 3 on our agenda. So we're being asked to consider the proposed preliminary and final plat for a condominium subdivision for a cottage on the corner located at 323 East Pages Lane. So we'll turn the time back over to staff.
And before that, Chair, I'm just, for the potential of a business dealing between myself and the applicant, which is very slim, but it is potential there, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion.
You're excused. Thank you. All right, staff.
Thank you, Chair Heyman. Members of the commission, as you indicated, this is a request. The initial request is for preliminary subdivision approval. It's been a while since you've seen this project. We did approve it as a site plan, and development occurred under the site plan parameters. So it is one parcel developed with 6 townhome units at this time. The applicant's also requesting an opportunity for the commission to approve the final plat for the project and expedite the ability to move on to the city council. Typically, again, when our subdivision and zoning ordinances accomplish their outcomes, you get these unique situations, and staff did believe that this is an interesting place where the project has now been entirely built. All the infrastructure to service the development has been put in place, and now we have the paper platting process. And initially, I think the applicant and not even staff fully appreciated that that project went to conceptual approval. It did its conceptual site plan, its final site plan, its conditional use permit, and the preliminary just kind of dropped off the radar. And the intent from the early on from the project was to complete the process so eventually all of the units could be sold individually. So that's a request, is to move to the next step of a preliminary subdivision approval, and with the request for a final to expedite that opportunity. From staff's perspective, we attached the background report for you for the site plan and the conditional use permit so that you understood the original context of the development. We talked about this during the Development Review Committee, and the committee did not resist the idea of requesting a final, and I think it's simply set up in the nature of the project. Typically, preliminary is a chance to give the feedback for the project, make sure it's going to comply with the city's zoning for lot sizes and subdivision ordinance for development of plans. The next step would be a final plat with the construction drawings of all the improvements, and then bonding and all of that. This is a unique situation. They have constructed the improvements, bond for them, completed them, released the bonds, so we're really in just a formality process to create the paper copy for recording purposes. So the committee did not seem to resist the idea of combining them together in this particular case due to the nature of the project, and so we've addressed it as if we would be moving to the final plat to the city council if that's what you would allow as a commission. There are a couple of unique things, though, attached with this other than the normal platting process. There is the production of the CC&Rs. They did submit the covenants, conditions, and restrictions for the project. They did submit the articles of incorporation for it. Those do need to be finalized and reviewed by the city attorney simply for compliance with state statutes to convert these into units for sale. So that still needs to take place. The other issue to take place is a title report. Typically, you see a preliminary title report early on. We did see title reports back during the project. It's obviously an old title report. The updated for a final is okay because you have to have it within 30 days. And so we don't feel that the title is in a compromising situation that we know of. So it would be submitted and checked during the platting process and be within 30 days. So we're within a window that works logistically for the title report update. Also, we're positive it's this way from a staff perspective, but we just need verification. The units were built under the idea of it's one building on one lot. There was always plans to convert this. We just need to verify that the fire codes and the building codes for separation of units for property lines was indeed done. I'm pretty sure it was, but we just need that verification from the fire department and the building official that did indeed take place, because if it didn't, it compromises the ability to create a lot line through the middle of a structure. But we're pretty sure. Also, we need we got a feedback from the secondary water company. There was some agreements during the site plan to abandon one easement and relocate another easement. I believe it's on the north side of the project. It's shown on the plat, but we just need verification that the secondary water is satisfied with those easement changes. And the last item I think I put on there was the CUP. Where did I put that? Did I put in a condition for that? It's the idea that there are specific conditions for the density of this project, and there are some site plan conditions with, if you remember, the garbage delivery and the truck and so forth, and the parking signing. It's helpful that future owners understand that. So the idea of including them in the CC&Rs is a good place, but as you know, the city doesn't enforce those private restrictions. So in talking with Lisa about this, we think the plat notes that this project is subject to the site plan and CUP approvals should be on the plat as notes. So I think that's what Lisa and I talked about. It's been a week. So So we're comfortable moving forward with it. It's really a paper plat process, and allow the applicant to move directly, if you're comfortable, to the city council to finalize that paper process at this point.
Thank you very much, Corey. Any questions for staff? If not, we'll invite the applicant to step forward and speak to this matter. If you'll introduce yourself to us.
Hi, my name's Scott Bowling. I now live at 323 East Pages Lane in one of these units. As mentioned, we have 6 units there. I have occupancy permits on all the units. They're all occupied at this time. This is a motion that we want to approve, so we would be able to sell each of the individuals, or have that option to sell each of the individuals in individual units. I hope it's a good project. We've done our best, and I hope it, in addition to your city, and I have no concerns about the items that have been discussed. I think we've already provided a updated title report in the CC&Rs, but if you're missing anything, we'd be glad to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good-looking project from my perspective. So,
Thank you.
any questions for the applicant?
Yes, did you say you moved into one of these units?
I'm in Unit 3, yeah. They're all occupied.
Yeah, no, I just, that was interesting.
This is just pure curiosity on my part, because I know that we struggled with the parking and the ACE access and all of that. You remember our discussions on that. How is the parking access working in terms of getting people in and out of that development?
We've got, in essence, we've got a little over 3 parking spaces per unit. And it's a good thing, because most of the families that we've got in there, we got one family that has 1 vehicle. We've got one that's got 4, and we have 2. But generally, every night we have 1 vacancy in there. We got 7 visitors parking spaces, and then 2 covered in each garage. And generally, there's about 1 vacancy, or 1 or 2 vacancies every night. So it seems to be covering our needs. Yeah.
Madam Chair, we get calls from individuals about the driveway and whether it's a heated driveway or not. I think Mr. Bowling can rest that rumor. He explained it to us the other day.
We have a heated drive. We have portion, not the whole thing. I can't afford that. but we have one little courtyard area that's it's well shaded by one of the units, and it would be a long ways to push the snow if we had to. And so we put some heat coils under the driveway, and it's a lot easier to shovel that way.
Are you telling me that you have some really jealous neighbors?
Well, it's pretty slick. Now that I got it working, I wish I'd have done more. But
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
thank you.
This matter, let me make sure I remember correctly. I want to say that this matter has been scheduled for a public hearing. Yes, it has. So we will take the opportunity to open a public hearing and invite any member of the public who wishes to speak to this matter to step forward. I know you introduced yourself to us once already, but if you'll do it again, just so we have a clear record.
That's fine. Robert Burns, President, Centerville Dual Creek Irrigation Company. So for your minutes, you might, your recording person might spell the company name D-E-U-E-L, because that's one of our pioneers, and that's what the company's named after, obviously, Dual Creek up here. So the issue of the easements was raised in December of 2016, and it's kind of slid through until now, but it has to be addressed. It's required in the final plat that all the easements are shown on there. There's also another section in the zoning code about easements, that buildings cannot be constructed on top of a easement. So I think it falls to Lisa, but if the original easement was not vacated and it's underneath the building, it's gonna have to be vacated. So, okay. The PUE on the north side, I do not believe covers all of the alignment of the irrigation line that's back there, because it's offset as it travels across the north boundary there. It steps back right up against the building. So we'll have to work through those issues on the easements.
So you currently have an operating line that's running just south of one of the buildings there, Building 1?
No, it runs along the north boundary of the
north
property.
Okay.
It was constructed in 1959, probably, or 60. And so now it's under quite a bit more cover than it was because the ground level's been raised considerably in there. So hoping we don't have to go in there and work on it.
And does that line service just this property, or does that service?
No, it ties from 400 east to 300 east. So it's a 4-inch line. It does serve, has 3 services on it, well, 4 probably. The church and those properties that face onto Pages Lane are connected to it. But, well, we actually moved Ballings off of that line during this construction, just so that in the future, when we abandon that line, hopefully, it's not planned right now, but we wouldn't have to redo their service. So their service comes off of 300 East now. But eventually, we will move to Pages Lane, and we will have to move the other services that are connected onto that line. We'll have to reconfigure them too at some cost, so.
Okay, thanks.
The easement on the north end that's problematic, is it going under any of the buildings or is it in the backyards
I
there?
can't state where the original 1960 easement is. We just have a letter. It's probably referred to in what Corey's emailed you. I can't see some of the communications between Corey and the Planning Commission. So I think he's forwarded you my email, my original comments on the utility provider review sheet. There was an offer of an exchange of easements, but I have no record that it was completed.
Right, and I don't think the submittal has a scanned copy of that. That's why it's raised in the staff report.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't recall seeing that.
Any other questions?
Any
Are
other
you
questions?
willing to do so, to vacate and grant the new one? You're just saying it hasn't been done?
Well, we need to make sure it's done. And then one of those 2 easements exists at this time, right? So if the 2002, I believe, easement is in an acceptable location, that could just be put on the plat. But the PUE, I do not believe covers the eastern portion of the pipeline where it crosses through that property, over there in the northeast corner.
Is that because of the shift in the property line?
You can see the PUE is following the building line.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a portion of the property that's north of the PUE that I believe is where the line is located now. It's very close to that. Yeah, if you zoomed in right up there at the top, you can see how the PUE is off, it jogs across there. So if the 2002 exchange of easements was completed, potentially we have an easement in the correct location.
Great, well, good luck, staff, sorting that one out.
Whew, all
Well,
right.
it'll be the title report, and the engineer will review those.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing no one step forward, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll invite the applicant to step back if you'd like to respond to the public comment. Will you just, I'm sorry, just for our home viewing audience, if you'll approach the mic.
This is kind of new to me, but I apparently that we just need to work things out with them. I'm not opposed to providing a larger easement in that corner. you know, because we got 6 feet before it gets to the building, if that's necessary, but I'll just have to work out the location of that prior easement and find out if it's within the PUE that we've got shown, or either show both of them on the plat, and I'm all right with both of those options, but.
Yeah, if it's still recorded on the, against the property, it'll need to be shown on the plat by book and page number.
Similar to what
or-
we do with the sewer
right,
district?
Or vacate
Okay.
and, you know, grant a new one, but probably the easiest and swiftest is just to show that existing one
Why don't we
on
just
the
do that?
plat. If it,
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'll ask for further discussion or debate, but Corey, is this something that you would recommend that we table while they work through that, or what
No,
is your suggestion?
It's up to you on how comfortable you want the answer. I'm comfortable because I know that the title report's going to call out the easement location. And the city engineer will look at that, and then also the as-bills for the project. And if easements need to be shown on there, he'll require them to be shown onto the plat. The other discussion is if there's an unused easement or one that can be abandoned, it's just a matter of the applicant wanting to abandon it now or abandon it later.
yeah, I think I would, if the planning commission's comfortable moving forward with a recommendation, I would suggest an additional condition that all existing easements of record must be shown on the plat or vacated prior to recording the final plat.
So Lisa, you're proposing expanding number 5 or in addition to number 5?
I would probably just say in addition. I mean, that's already a requirement.
Yeah.
When we look at the title report, we'll see if there's any easements and make sure they're on the plat. And if they're not, then that's part of the comments, either from the engineer
Yeah, so I
or
think it would
the
be
attorney.
any
Okay.
needed or existing easements is how I'd amend it.
Right, but, yeah, so 5 is just addressing the secondary irrigation company, but what I'm saying is I would just broaden that, because if there's any easements that he hasn't
True.
noted on the plat, he still has to show them on the plat, so.
True.
So you're saying number 8 would be pretty much
Yeah.
what you're talking about?
All existing easements of record must be shown on the plat or vacated prior to recording of the final plat.
Got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any further discussion or debate? Thank you both, Corey and Lisa, for that. If not, the chair will, actually, I'll just go ahead and make a motion. I make a motion for the planning commission to approve the preliminary subdivision plans and recommend approval of the final plat for the cottage on the corner development, subject to the following conditions 1 through 7 in the staff report, adding an additional 8th condition that all existing easements of record must be shown on the plat or vacated prior to recording the plat. And for suggested reasons A through C.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? If not, we'll start with you, Commissioner Daley.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
and it passes. Thank you very much. All right. And we'll invite Commissioner Wright to step back up. And the 4th item on our agenda, City Council report. So I'll turn the time back over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Hayman. I'm trying to, I failed to, in preparation for the work session, to go to the council agenda if there was any planning items on the previous agenda.
I think they approved the permanent cosmetic. And they also talked about the foothills planning.
Yeah.
Just, that continues to move on.
Thank you, Lisa. I just couldn't remember.
Thank you, Lisa.
It's a team sport here.
I do.
We all jump in. Anything further in the Community Development Director's report?
You do have 3 items, I think, are on the tentative schedule for your next meeting. So keep that in mind, and also,
What are they, Corey? Just curious to know.
you have the Dual Creek
The dual.
For reals this time?
for reals this time.
Spelled D-E-U-E-L.
Yeah.
See? We're getting this right.
And then,
Legacy
The
Lands.
Legacy Lands.
Final plat and subdivision, chapter 4 discussion. That's it.
Okay.
Legacy what?
Legacy Lands, the one on 1250 West.
Oh, yeah.
out by the UDOT sheds. And then I did bring you up in the work session to speed. Next council meeting will be a discussion with them on the South Main Street corridor revamp of the general plan and zoning ordinance. And so I've provided a proposal that'll go into that packet report. And when that's published, I can send that on to the Planning Commission so you can see what they'll be discussing. How they respond to it and any tweaks, yet to be determined, but you'll get an idea. It'll run from a period of March to July, and the idea is in July, the commission potentially makes a recommendation, and then from there, the council would take it. If you recall, they wanted a June timeframe, and given the new city manager transition, the budget transition, the foothills that they still need to accomplish, and then just the selfish time for staff trying to make a process that's viable in that duration with the public, also to participate in that. So you'll see it in some of the suggestions, and we'll see how the city council responds to it. If you have any particular questions about that process, I could answer them, but you'll see it in the timeline.
Thanks very much, Corey. All right.
Sorry, real quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Corey, the work session with the city council, was that for
What
March
day is that?
13th or 27th?
It's proposed that they can choose one of those dates in the.
Oh,
in
it's
the-
not.
We don't have it set yet, right?
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Actually, it might be helpful. The two proposed dates were the 10th and the 27th?
13th and 27th.
13th and the 27th. Can you all look at your calendars and see maybe if that won't work for one of us?
I'm good for either.
Sure, I think it's a good idea.
There's a very, very, very slight chance the 27th might not work for me, but as right now, it does.
For me, right now, the 13th will not work.
I'm good either day.
Logan will change his mind later.
No, I was gonna say I can't make the next meeting, but I think I can make those two.
Okay.
So the preferred potentially is the
27th.
27th but
March.
of March.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much. And moving to the last item on our agenda, this is the funnest one, so we'd encourage you to stick around. This one's great. We are going to approve.
That's why, hey, we used to have it at the beginning.
Yeah, we did
And
move this
now
till
we
the
have it
end.
at the end.
To make people not have to sit through all of it, but it really is fascinating. We're going to be looking at approving our minutes from our January 23rd meeting, so we will do this in the typical fashion, going through page by page. If you have any comments, let me know. So starting with page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Chair will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes as unamended.
Oh, well done. Second.
This is the first time they've been unamended
No,
in a
no, we
long
had it.
time.
Oh, yeah, okay, maybe.
In a long time. I said in a long
It's
time.
good condition.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No one's opposed. They don't want to give Cassie stuff to write down that she's
That
going to
is-
have
I brought
to
my
change.
red pen.
I know, she's like ready. She's like, I can do this.
You are off the hook. And unless anybody has anything further to discuss, I think that we're done.
I'm not able to make the next meeting. I know we're tight on members. Do we have everyone else enough for quorum at your next meeting?
Which is?
27th of February?
I'll be here.
Yeah, I'll be here.
I will be here.
Okay, looks like we'll be fine. All right, thanks for letting me know, though,
Yeah.
Logan, I appreciate that. And I move that we adjourn.
Go ahead.
I need a second.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.